Kia ora and hello to our Cinema in Context listeners. It's Jeremy here, and I thought I'd jump in and say a massive thank you to all of you who come every month and listen to Cinema in Context. It means a huge deal to Sarah, William, and myself. And we thought this month we would share with you our extended episode. This is something we record for our Patreon, and we've been doing it for the last year. We talk about a third film that we would group with these two movies, a moment we would change from one of the films, and our favourite moment from either Gladiator or Napoleon. So, think of it as an early Christmas present or just a gift from us to you. A massive shout out to each and every one of you. Please enjoy this month's extended episode of Cinema in Context. Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm Sarah Watt.
And I'm William Chen.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective, with some connection. It could be the same director, the same actor, or a similar theme. Or in the case of this month, it's all three.
Yeah!
We are discussing Gladiator, which came out in the year 2000, and Napoleon, which came out this year, 2023. The connection being they are both historical epics directed by Sir Ridley Scott, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Mm-hmm. Right, Gladiator. William, give us a bit of an introduction to this 2000 film.
Righty-ho. Gladiator is the tale of Maximus Decimus Meridius, a general or commander of the Roman legion wrongfully wronged, left for dead, fighting his way back to Rome as the eponymous titular gladiator.
Nice.
Along the way, he inspires his fellow gladiators. He uncovers political intrigue, and he takes the fight back to the emperor, played by Joaquin Phoenix, the slithering coward who wronged him.
Nice. And Napoleon. Give us a bit of a overview of this latest offering from Sir Ridley Scott.
Alors, Sir Ridley, he has made a film in 2023 called Napoleon. And it's this time, Joaquin Phoenix has gone from Best Supporting Actor up to, well, I would not say Best Actor, but he is at least the lead role.
Most actor.
He is the most actor. Although thankfully he was spared being in Gucci, which had all the awards for most acting. But anyway, so Napoleon Bonaparte, real historical figure played by Joaquin Phoenix, and it is an historical epic that is a little bit more grounded in the truth or the truth in inverted commas of Napoleon's life. Napoleon, again, ascending in power from being a successful general all the way up to being the Emperor of France. And it incorporates the trajectory, his military trajectory of successes on the battlefield, intertwined with his love affair with the very famous Josephine. Played by Vanessa Kirby, who is not French. But she is very British, and she does the British accent very well.
Nice, excellent. It is worth saying that we will be spoilering both films. I don't think either movies are, you don't go into it for the plot twists because they're both relative historical accounts. I mean, Gladiator's a little bit more fabricated. And so, yeah, but still, there's some good surprises in here you may want to have on your own. And so pause this episode and come back to it at a future date if you find yourself in that situation. Mm-hmm. All right, who wants to kick us off with either film?
I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off and say I am so sorry once again. As with some other very, very famous films before, Gladiator was on my list of shame.
Oh.
You had never seen it before?
I had seen many, many scenes from Gladiator.
Wow.
This time round, in the year 2023, was the first time I sat down, turned on Netflix, and watched it from beginning to end.
Wow, what did you think?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I am kicking myself for not, discovering this in its entirety back when I was younger, because I think I would have maybe liked it even more, especially when it came out. I think it really, this is the first time seeing it, but it holds up.
Yeah. You're right, it doesn't date.
It doesn't.
No, there's not an aspect of it that feels dated.
Strangely timeless.
Yeah.
Especially as we were talking about, Jeremy, like a lot of what Gladiator puts forth in terms of its visuals, its style, and also its overall sentimentality. It's basically what HBO has been aping for the last decade. I mean, directly with Rome, but oh my gosh, Game of Thrones owes this movie a paycheck because so much of the visual stylings and kind of the political machinations and the dialogue of Game of Thrones seems to be taken whole cloth from what was set up in Gladiator.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I think there's some incredible elements of this that have influenced television and film in the last 23 years. I do want to push back on the dated bit a little bit.
Oh, yeah?
Because I think some of the cinematography is...
Wait, the slow-mo, the blurry...
Yeah, and the zooms in, and... I mean, there's stylistic choices that I will accept in the world of Gladiator, but I do think there are some choices here. And just the... I guess how the film is appealing to an audience. Like, it very much is set up as a popcorn flick to kind of appeal to the masses. Like, when you get to the points where... because I know that they re-edited who's the character
Oliver
in the
Reed, who died.
Yeah, who died.
dies.
Yeah, so they changed his kind of ending.
So Oliver Reed died in real life. He plays Proximo, the slave dealer. That's right. So he died during the filming. Yeah, so there was a little bit of CGI at the end.
Yeah, and they give him a more favourable ending. So they edited that at the end, I think, because of his death, but also in, I guess, editing the movie, they thought, oh, he's really likeable, and we want to give him a bit more of a, because if you think about it, the last filmed scene with him is him effectively coming to Russell Crowe's character and just being like, nah, stuff, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. You can.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then he has the
The redemption.
posthumous redemption where he looks at his sword.
Yeah, and so there's that whole sequence where they attack the compound, which is kind of ridiculous. And then by the time you get to the Emperor fighting him in the ring, I thought, oh, this is so silly. But
Apparently, true.
Yeah.
Really?
Apparently, Commodus was one emperor, because they are... I'm sorry to leap in.
No, jump
But
in.
interestingly, something I didn't realise when I first saw Gladiator, I thought it was here's a general picture of life in Rome. But apparently, Aurelius, the emperor who's played by Richard Harris, who's killed at the beginning, Commodus, are real emperors. And apparently Commodus was an emperor who was known for...
did he die in that situation?
Oh, I doubt it. I doubt it very much.
I don't think so.
No. But he did at least used to get in the ring, and I'm sure he will have also rigged it, wouldn't he? You know, an emperor like him wouldn't have got in the ring to fight proper gladiators if there wasn't some way that he could come out on top.
I was reading about this as well. Apparently, he was just this real populist guy.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be, a hero of the people, so he would perform as a gladiator.
And you notice how they're giving out big loaves of bread, and you've heard the phrase bread and circuses. And I couldn't, you haven't?
No.
Oh, I think it's some phrase to do with give the people what they want, the people want bread and circuses. And I thought probably it's Shakespeare, and it probably is, because that guy coined every bloody phrase, didn't he? But possibly not also. And that's so, I mean, it was quite conspicuously giving out loaves of bread to the audience, a bit like they give us popcorn nowadays, I suppose, so that they sit there and they watch the circus of death in front of them. So Commodus Populus guy. Commodus Populus. That would have been a name.
My reaction, because I watched the film when it came out and I was younger, and enjoyed it. I sort of rewatching it, I both thought it was not that great, Gladiator, but equally had such a good time. And I really appreciate...
Not that great.
Yeah, I just didn't... I don't know, it's just a little bit silly. I think it's a bit silly.
I mean, I love that it's a little bit silly.
I mean, I kind of like that as well, right? I felt that tension. I was like, oh, Ridley Scott's making this really...
4 words, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
You
That's
don't
all
even
I
know.
can think right
You
now.
don't even know.
I don't even know, you're right. But
I love how at one moment you have Maximus, yes, Maximus, kind of thinking about his past, running his hand through those famous wheat fields, and then a split second later, a chariot literally bisects a gladiator, and the blood and guts are spilling everywhere.
a gladiatress,
yeah,
no
that's
less.
right.
How rude. But anyway, yes.
And it's camp and
With
it's
a
silly.
literal breastplate
Yeah,
on as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
That's right. But yeah.
I mean, as much as I sound like I'm criticizing this movie, I think I'm just highlighting that that's part of the joy of this film.
Yeah.
And when you read about the making of it, there's so much improvisation.
Yeah.
And not even just with the actors. I mean, just Ridley Scott literally making up stuff with the pieces he's got in front of him.
Yeah.
And just trusting the process.
Yes.
And deciding things in the edit, and just it's
Although-
got this joy about it.
Ridley also, though, does a lot of his own storyboarding and his own designs. And for listeners, readers, watchers who don't know, Ridley Scott came up, he's British, and came up through the world of commercials. And so that's part of the aesthetic side of him, isn't it? But the thing, and I'm so sorry, this is quite an exciting conversation, so I'm leaping in here. The thing about Gladiator that was so striking on a rewatch, and for me it was a many, many, many rewatch, but looking at it a bit more critically this time, and definitely comparing it to Napoleon, is the plot is still really good. It is well written, it is well scripted, I felt. I know it is a revenge tale, but my goodness, those are satisfying.
There's such a clear through line in the whole thing.
It's so clear. Everything that happens has something to do with something, and it was engaging. So for 2 hours 37 or whatever it is, which was pretty long in those days, it felt like this is a whole movie. This is not just a period, a selection of cool set pieces, although it's blimmin' that as well. Even the Connie Nielsen bits that didn't fall into a whole blatant nude love scene or anything like that,
Yeah.
She's an interesting character, eh? Like she does a great job acting it.
Yeah.
And she's there as kind of this supporting role, almost a foil to Joaquin Phoenix,
Yes.
and just her predicament is so clear. She's there for her son.
It is palpable, isn't it? I thought that was very well done. Yes, okay, there's tears coming down her face. I thought that was extremely well done, again, on a rewatch, to see that when she goes in to see her brother is sitting with her treasured son and they're cozying up to one another. And actually, Joaquin loves Lucius, but you know what I mean, sorry, the Emperor loves Lucius, but he will do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And that there is that fear of, this child is the only thing I have left, and it is my most precious thing, and the terror that this Emperor has so much power.
I think with that, and with Maximus's side of things, and also with Commodus's side of things, if we're talking about our leads, the character motivations are just so clear. I was chatting to you before, Jeremy, about how this is one of the perfect movies for a media studies class, because it's like nothing is left off the table, right? You have very, very clean storytelling. You have characters that you can really sink your teeth in. Yeah, they're not particularly complex characters, but they don't need to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the villain is so punchable. He has these scenes where, it's like, I find this vexing. I am vexed. And then when Maximus is dealing the beat down at the end, you're just like, yeah, take him down.
And yet, I mean, and the brilliance of Commodus, the Emperor, is his vulnerability is writ large as well. And I do not suggest for a second, even softy old Sarah at the table went, I actually feel quite sorry for Commodus. Because I don't know, man. Didn't Joaquin win Best Supporting Actor for that? Or was he just nominated?
He was definitely nominated. I don't know if he won it.
And it is an extraordinary, nuanced performance, because he you're right, he's not a cartoon villain. The pain that he feels from the rejection from his father is acted so beautifully when he's with Richard Harris, when he's talking to his sister. He's brilliant, and I do think that adds to the power of it, because God bless Russell Crowe, and I'm not criticizing him, and I think he is a tremendous actor when he's a tremendous actor. And Maximus, as you say, very clear-cut character, very clear revenge reasons and all that, and I think he does it well. But his character, by its nature, is less emotive, right? So how wonderful that Joaquin, who has more power in the character of the characters, gets to play all of the things, including the weepy, sorry, I just wanted him to love me. And
It's so different to Eddie Redmayne and what's that movie that was it Jupiter Rising?
Oh, I never saw that.
It's the same. It was the same role, isn't it? But just
Was he awful?
well, he was deemed to be awful, wasn't he? People thought one of the worst performances. I don't think it was that bad, but it was pretty outrageous. It's interesting because Russell Crowe, he did win the Best Actor for this, didn't he? He won it 2 times in a row because he did Beautiful Mind the next year.
And if that isn't showing range, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I think that he, we were joking before we started recording about him having an Australian accent, and he absolutely does, especially in the opening battle sequence. It's like,
But only in little words. Like
Yeah.
mostly he does it quite well, and then there'll be the odd word that gives it away.
yeah.
And it's more like the why, or or he'll be a little bit nasal or
Yeah.
something like that. But then, do you know what I mean? But he's pretty good.
Yeah, but I think he does such a great job. He really grounds that film in a sense of, I just think, earthiness. His
Yes.
character's
Oh,
so
I mean,
real.
literally with the touching of the earth.
Yeah.
Stoicism, masculinity, but not like rah 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 masculinity.
No,
more
no.
like, I'm confident of myself and in myself. And because of this inner power,
Yes.
he inspires those around him. You see it throughout the film.
And silently furious as well, which is much more deadly
Yeah.
than an overtly rah rah I'm the boss kind of person.
And great snot acting.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
I always remember the snot on the foot. And let's leap into my scatological issues. I always remember that, and I anticipated it this time. So this is the scene, viewers, listeners, watchers, where sadly Maximus turns up to his compound, and his son and his wife have been brutally murdered, crucified and burned by the looks of things. So yeah, my issues are you're putting your face on the sooty feet, but also you're getting snot. You're getting snot across it all. Clearly, I mean, and then I think, well, what would you do, Sarah, if you came upon this sort of grievous thing? And yeah,
I think that stoicism and that masculinity and that kind of earthiness, again, really links to Game of Thrones, because if you think about the Stark family,
Ned Stark.
that is Jon
who
Snow
plays
and
Ned
Ned
Stark?
Sean
Bean.
Bean.
Oh yeah. Scene
And Kit
Bean, as we
Harington.
used to call him.
Yeah.
I know who Kit Snow is.
Kit
I do.
Snow.
I never watched Game of Thrones.
Oh, it's
I watched the
wonderful.
first episode and I went, well, these people are ghastly and I don't want to spend another moment with them.
Oh, gosh.
Fast forward 5 years and I'm watching Succession, but that's not the point. But also the incest, because there's incest in Game
yeah.
of Thrones, isn't there?
Yes, there's a lot
and
of
this
it.
is not really willing incest. Well, it's not at all willing incest, but the creepiness of being this simpering brother who is in love with his sister, who doesn't have any power to reject him, lest he wreaks havoc and kills not just her but her son.
I think that you've kind of alluded to another element that is very Game of Thrones, which is that kind of there's power dynamics and family drama, and and incest is part of that in Game of Thrones, and definitely the suggestion of that is in Gladiator.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Russell Crowe, I think I was talking again. William and I were talking the other night when we went and saw Napoleon. Ridley Scott tells a story about the opening scene of Gladiator, and he had his extras set up in that battleground. They had to set the production design, and he called across Russell Crowe, and it was the first time they'd worked together, because of course they've done multiple films since then. And he said, hey, look, what I want you to do is I want you to go and stand out there, and you're going to bend down, you're going to pick up some dirt, and then you're going to see a bird. There won't be a bird, I'll cut that in later. Just see a bird, it flutters down, and then you look out at the battleground, and I'll bring the camera down, and that's how we'll start our movie. And Russell was like, all right. So he went out there, he did the thing, he did the beats, he did it perfectly, and Ridley Scott turned to him and he said, oh, we're gonna do some great things, mate.
Yeah,
Like, I think
lovely.
it was that kind of actor-director, like, let's just figure this out.
Synergy.
Yeah. And of course they have, because they've done A Good Year, they've done Robin Hood, they've done, what else have they done? Definitely those two movies.
Not The Counsellor. Russell's
Russell
not in
in
that, is he?
No, that's RDJ, right? I think.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Could be. I didn't like A Good Year.
I haven't seen it.
It's dumb.
I have swag from A Good Year. I don't know why.
Do you? So A Good Year's the one where... So my husband asked me yesterday, he said, have you seen A Good Year? I said, yeah, I did. He said, was it any good? And I said, no, it was dumb. It was one of those, I'm going to make a vineyard kind of BS. And Doug said, well, was it even good in a vicarious... sometimes it's nice to watch films set in Tuscany or wherever. Yeah. And I said, no.
Nah.
So...
I think you are of the majority, because I was working at the cinema when that film came out. Didn't really feel any desire to see it, and nobody that went to see it raved about it when they came out of it. So
no.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Napoleon, because I think there's some lovely connections to be made, and it's actually quite a different film.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, can I start us off with what I think was the most impressive thing in the whole film?
Please do.
Is the performance by Vanessa Kirby.
Yes.
I just think she was outstanding.
Yeah.
And I've seen her in lots of things. I've just been listening to a 12th Night production from 2013 where she plays, I think, Viola. Great work in that. But she is just wonderful. And there's this wonderful life about her, nuanced. You're not quite sure what's going on in her mind. I trust her motivations as a character, or her actions, I should say, have motivation as a character because of the way she sells it. What say thee?
I love Vanessa Kirby. I'm just refreshing my memory. She was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress last year or the year before. Oh, how the last few years blend into one another. And it was an incredible film. And if someone actually could look it up while I'm talking, that would be great. But Vanessa, basically, it's almost a two-hander. It's her and it's Oscar. Who's that lovely Oscar?
Oscar Isaac.
I'm pretty sure it's... No, it isn't. It's her with Shia LaBeouf.
Oh.
And it's amazing, and they are pregnant and they have a baby, and tragedy strikes. And it's not called Sensible Woman, but it's something like something woman, something to do with being a woman.
Can I say, you are doing fantastic vamping, as William and I fear.
I'm trying to find my phone.
Have you changed your Wi-Fi? Is what I'm thinking?
Yes.
That's why. So I was like, I can't search on my computer.
Oh, all right. No, don't worry. I can look it up here.
So she's in The Crown.
Yeah. Oh, and she was pretty great in The Crown.
Was it Mission Impossible?
Yeah. Well, no, she's amazing in Mission
Was
Impossible.
it a Cartier? Was it called The Sun?
No. Pieces of a Woman. There we go, darlings. 2020, Pieces of a Woman. That's how long ago it was. Oh my God. Her acting, it is with Shia LaBeouf as well. Extraordinary film, extraordinary script, extraordinarily sad. But what it takes is for an extraordinary performance, particularly in a two-hander, about the grief around a childbirth.
Right.
And she's incredible. So she was nominated and did not win, and I wouldn't be at all... Well, I would be surprised if she was nominated as Josephine, but what I wouldn't be surprised... I mean, her star is ascending, guaranteed.
She should... What are you saying? She won't get nominated for this?
For Napoleon?
Yeah.
I think she would.
Oh, you
I
do?
think she will, yeah.
Oh, well, that's amazing. I wondered whether the film would be rejected. We don't yet know what everybody thinks of the film, but...
I suppose.
I don't know.
I mean, that was one of the things we talked about. It's like, this is going to get a lot of Oscar noms. Like the production design and the costumes and the
you
music.
think so?
They don't make movies like these anymore.
Okay, but
this is like classic Hollywood.
Can I get a sense from you guys at what you felt about the movie as a whole?
I would say I enjoyed it, even though it was completely different from what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the introspection is interesting. I don't know if I would say I enjoyed it, but it's definitely an interesting way of taking a Napoleon biopic.
Sure.
Right. A direction that we haven't really seen before. The battle sequences are extraordinary.
Stunning. Yeah.
I think back to maybe Fellowship of the Ring is the last time we saw anything on that scale.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there was a lot more use of practical... Well, yeah, I don't know how much digital was used in Napoleon, but it feels practical.
Yeah.
And I think with the development of drone technologies, obviously there's heaps of drone work in this, and it looks astounding.
Yes, it does.
Well, you know that Ridley Scott records with 6 cameras, and he's quite an advocate of this, and he says, I don't know why more directors don't do this.
Well, in
why
this instance, I think he did 14.
Right.
For the battle scenes, he used 14 cameras.
Gosh.
Because he thought, and then we've got all the coverage, and then we can cut something extraordinary.
Yeah, which is just such a confident way to... I mean, he has such a clear understanding about the... what am I trying to think of here? Like, just the cost of film and where money can get sucked up and how to use the resources in front of you. And like, I think about the early days when he talks about Blade Runner and he's like, I can make a new set with just these pieces. As long as we can move them around and light in a different way, throw some smoke in, I can create a whole new different part of the
11
city.
cameras, I'm sorry. Let's not overdo it, Sarah. So, in the fight scenes, 300 men, 100 horses, 11 cameras, which is still... a chunk of that's right.
I know
that's
that Lady Gaga and Adam Driver talked about this with House of Gucci and how they could just, because people were asking how did you kind of create that chemistry between the two of you, especially during the intimate scenes. I don't just mean the sex
Which
scenes,
chemistry
I mean
between
Gaga and Driver?
Oh yes.
And they said, well, we were just able to play and create, and Ridley worked with us to kind of create that. And we knew that it was covered. We didn't have to recreate these moments. So you just had to live in the moment.
Oh,
and Vanessa Kirby has said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Especially that sequence where Joaquin Phoenix crawls under the table and pulls her in.
Yes, that was lovely.
And that was something that he started to do, and then Ridley Scott stopped it, put a tablecloth over the scene because he thought it would be funnier to see him through the tablecloth.
Yeah.
And then they started it again, and off they went. And Vanessa Kirby kind of just said that she felt like...
Oh, you can hear her, laughing through it is very natural, and it speaks very convincingly to the romance, the genuine love between Napoleon and Josephine, because it did feel like, I know we're jumping everywhere here, forgive me, but it feels like a little bit of it's a very, very codependent relationship, but also a little bit of a push-me-pull-you relationship at times. And I occasionally would think, is she just doing this? Is she just in it for the money or the prestige or whatever? And then I'd go, no, actually, I'm quite gratified to see that she actually really loves him. And at the end, during the divorce, which is really gutting, and the time thereafter where they are such lovely friends that they are reduced to writing to one another, you think, what a complex and gorgeous, maybe gorgeous isn't quite the right word, but what a lovely relationship. So that scene is delightful. And the reason the tablecloth also is delightful is because when you are under the tablecloth, you almost have this sense of we're in this intimacy together. And despite the fact that there are servants standing everywhere listening or not listening, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's a much better idea. So good old Riddles for that.
And you think like they would have felt like you would have filmed it with 6 cameras, and so you
get every
spontaneity is
yes,
there.
yes.
She said we maybe filmed things 2 or 3 times, and then we moved on. And
Yeah.
I just think that's so different
That's
to. And there was
Fincher.
this Fincher. There was this Kubrick element to this movie,
Yes.
and I guess he famously was trying to make a Napoleon film for a long time, and Ridley Scott read his notes and work leading into this and was sort of unimpressed, apparently. But, Kubrick famously will film things multiple times,
Yes.
and Fincher will as well. And I think with Fincher, he's often following characters with his camera, so there's like a technical element that requires it to be refilmed so many times.
But he also just wants to get the best cut, the best take, I mean, and
I
that
think
can
so.
be a bit draining.
It's hard to know because he also does, sometimes he does takes where he does a couple of takes and moves on. But if you watch a Fincher film, there's often that the camera will follow a character, and then when they emotionally pause, the camera pauses. And then, so there's this like kind of this dance that they have to choreograph.
Sure.
Yeah, it's choreographed. And I think that's where some of those 30, 40 takes come in, because they have to do that,
Was there famously that I feel like it was Jake Gyllenhaal in Zodiac? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be misremembering this anecdote. But that he gets in, the character gets in the car and has to shuffle through some papers on his front seat, and there was something about the fact that David Fincher made them film that 11 times or something like that. I mean, I could totally be conflating different aspects of it. Anyway,
speaking, just very, very quick offshoot of that. Have you guys seen The Killer?
Yeah, I love it.
No spoilers yet.
Okay,
Oh my god, I love
Sarah,
it. I'm watching it for the second time as we speak. Yeah.
Anyway,
As we speak.
Well,
where is this?
yeah.
So
I'm only half
Google
listening.
glasses on.
Yeah, that's right. Stop. Okay, yeah.
what angles? Yes. So this is just like maybe spoilers for the filmmaking, but there is a scene in The Killer where suddenly it turns into handheld footage. And I almost fell out of my seat. I was like, David Fincher doing like shaky cam Paul Greengrass style.
Yeah.
This is extraordinary. He's breaking out of the box. And then I read the making of afterwards, and all of that was digital. So he filmed it with a steady cam on like a dolly, and then they added the shaky effects. And it's like, it's because I had to get the vibrations perfect.
Yeah, right. I was
Which
gonna
is
say, he would've planned it.
hilarious.
He would have planned it perfectly.
Special soul.
I really enjoyed Napoleon. I thought it was disjointed and a messy film, but I had a really good time. I think the kind of joyfulness of the performances. I mean, I really liked Gucci. I was telling Lillian as we're leaving, and the second time that I watched it with my parents. I didn't mind Jared Leto at all.
Right. Forearmed is forewarned, or whatever they say.
Right. Yeah. And my parents loved it, and it was just a really. I think when
I'd watch Gucci again.
it's great, and I mean when Ridley Scott has a great concept and a half decent structure, the acting, the production, the rhythm, like he's such a good filmmaker.
Yeah.
That I'm always along for the ride. Like if I think about The Good Year, it's. I know that it would have been a competently made film. It's just a bit of a boring concept.
Yeah.
Or did he do Matchstick Men?
He did do Matchstick Men.
I've never seen
That's
that.
heaps of fun. I love that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think he's such a competent director. So
He is,
I
he is.
enjoyed that element of it, all those elements of it. I mean, the score in this movie is
It's beautiful.
wonderful.
Well, so here's what I think. Everything you say is true. And so interesting that you say, yep, it'll be up for lots of Oscars, because I can see that it would be for costume and lighting. And and can I just say, because I've got my list of similarities, guys.
Oh, nice. nice.
Yeah.
Both films have tents in them.
Tense.
Yeah, TENTS.
Tense meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah, they have
Tense meeting in
They have
tents.
meetings in tents. Huh?
Very Game of
Tick.
Thrones.
All right.
Yeah.
Both of them have battles. Okay, tick. Both of them are the rise and fall of a war hero. Yeah, tick. Good. Both of them have Joaquin Phoenix. No, jokes. All right.
Yeah. Both of them are Harry Potter actors.
But what I would say... Wait, what?
I don't know if there are any Napoleon. I'm thinking of Richard Harris, who's Dumbledore.
Oh, right. Okay.
Carry on.
But also, what I do quite like as a connection is the fact that in the first film, in Gladiator, you've got young Joaquin and he's insecure professionally, if you will, or actually, and emotionally. But in the... Oh, hang on. And in the second film, Napoleon, you've got old Joaquin who's insecure mentally, I put here. Slightly different. Maybe not. Anyway...
You know, in Napoleon you've got boats, and in Gladiator you've got the score from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, you do. Or you do. Yes, but let's be fair. But Caribbean comes second.
I
so
know.
Caribbean steals from it. But I suppose what I mean is that in Napoleon, Joaquin's character is very secure in who he is professionally. Do you get what I mean? Anyway, my point.
Maybe too secure, because as the film portrays it, that turns out to be his downfall. Right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That hubris or lack of. No, hang on. Is it? Yeah.
I find that to be fascinating. I mean, obviously, historically, the movie deviates from what actually happened in pretty significant ways.
I don't know, William. There are dates on the screen that tell us exactly when things happen. 23rd of April, 1791. And I'm like, really? Okay.
But it's scratched onto the screen with a
Yeah,
quill.
that's cool.
No, that's true.
That's
Anyway,
cool.
yeah.
I love how the title, when you actually see him sign Napoleon,
Yeah.
it's his abdication, right? Which is a brilliant irony. I love that. It's not a period of momentous, occasion.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
But what was I talking about? Oh yes, so the entire... Wait, what was I talking about?
I don't know, but I'm keen to... I mean, we can pivot if you want.
I was going to say about the lighting, actually. Because I was in the process of saying he's done all these things really well. But for me, momentum, I didn't feel like I had the through line of the thrust of Gladiator with a story that was propelling me anywhere.
Yeah, I think
For
so.
me, it was a series of events.
Right.
Very interesting. But not something that I cared about enough to want to see again.
Right.
Fabulous battle scenes. And I don't consider myself a scientific or a military or a kind of a very logical thinking person, but I love the science behind the military, and I love the whole ice thing, the ice ambush.
my
I
goodness,
think
yeah.
this is genius. So I love films that have all that. But otherwise, and I thought the relationship was very moving, but there was something either in the editing or the pacing that did not draw me in.
I think that's fair.
I think. Sorry, I remember what I was
yes.
going to talk about now. Yes. So kind of reacting off what you just said.
Yeah.
So two things. First of all, yeah, the movie, from my understanding of the Napoleonic Wars, which is not great, but there's huge historical inaccuracies, right?
Right.
It does not make
And the
sense.
French are annoyed about
Oh
it.
yeah. The French hate this movie. And you think, should a Englishman make a bombastic movie about a French war hero emperor with the British accent, starring mostly British I don't know. It's a thing.
Joaquin had an American accent.
His accent was all over the place.
Was it?
No.
Really?
They all just had their normal accent.
Yeah,
really?
They
Joaquin was
weren't trying to
American,
be
yeah.
French. And to
Oh, but he wasn't. But it just seemed
no, he was just doing his
slightly
normal
out of
voice.
place.
But I think
just
his
American.
normal voice
Reminds
is...
me a lot of my feelings when I watched Death of Stalin, which is it's
That's
funny, yeah. But I felt really uncomfortable watching that. It's like, why should Brits and Americans make fun of Russians and cast all Brits and Americans in Russian roles? And it was like laughing down at a period of history, which is the whole point. but then it felt really problematic. I don't know. I have issues with that movie.
But I think isn't it the whole point that it is? I mean, it's not Richard Ayoade. Who's the director of Death and Stalin?
In the Loop guy.
Yeah, that's right. Armando Iannucci.
Yes.
So A, it's going to be a piss take, and B, does anybody think Stalin was a good guy? And that
I
was
don't
okay?
think so, but I don't know. I just had complex feelings.
I hear what you're
about it.
saying.
Yeah.
It's that narrative that we get all the time from one side, especially living in a colonial,
although
country.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with this, right? Like, obviously, the English never colonized France. But the thing, like, we are going to tell your story, it felt a little off.
They tried, didn't they? They did occupy. I guess there is a difference between colonizing and occupying, isn't there? But yeah, they definitely occupied.
Reminds me also of, more overt examples like U-571, where they took that's the other way, across the Atlantic.
Das Boot done America?
Oh, no. So
Different.
U-571 was based on a English war hero.
Oh, okay.
And they got Matthew McConaughey to play him.
Oh, I see.
And it's like, I'm here for the American hero.
Yeah.
But like, something about how Napoleon portrays him charging into battle at Waterloo. It's like, movie.
Well, okay,
but like, sorry, I'll just finish my point, which is, regardless of all of that, I think the movie still really works. It really, as you were saying, Sarah, it focuses in on these very, very almost myopic sections of the Napoleon story.
Yeah.
And kind of uses those as glimpses into both his professional life and his private life.
Yeah.
And it loses a lot of details, but it does so in a very, very directed way. Like, there's heaps of stuff that is not on the screen.
Yeah.
Napoleon destroyed Haiti, for example.
Who?
Haiti?
Oh, Haiti. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Not in the movie.
No.
There were assassination attempts. Not in the movie.
Yeah.
His brother's in the movie, but he was a super important part of his life. Kind of not in the movie.
Yeah.
His mother. But
that's weird when she turns up a bit later, actually.
And the kids and Josephine's kids kind of disappear for ages, and then his wife disappears. Napoleon's second wife disappears.
The 18-year-old.
Yeah. But there's a 4-hour cut that he's going to release.
Yeah.
But I think
that's only another half hour.
With all of that stuff.
Yeah, because the film was 2.5. Oh, wait.
4 hours.
I'm sorry. See,
Hour
I told
and a
you
half.
maths wasn't my thing.
But I just feel like what didn't work for you, Sarah, kind of worked for me. Maybe not entirely.
Yeah.
But like, I felt really satisfied by the end of the movie. It's like we've seen like glimpses into this guy's life.
Yeah.
And that's all we get, and that's okay, because that's what the movie is trying to portray.
And apparently, to be fair, Ridley, so Ridley told me that basically he was just doing a movie about a love story and that he just needed to put on a few battle scenes. But it is meant to be about the love story.
I mean, I'm sure I've expressed this on the podcast before. I'm always an advocate for a film being the best film it can be, and historical accuracy and, in the case of book adaptations, accuracy to the book are secondary to making the best film you can. And I think people going into movies wanting historical, accurate depictions, maybe, I just think that's not what we go to the movies for. We see a version of that story, we see a perspective of that story, we see something that's going to connect to us at a human level.
Sure.
And I don't want to see. I'm not going into Napoleon to understand the history of Napoleon.
Right.
And I don't mind that. I don't have that objection.
There's the History Channel for that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can go read a book, or I can, watch a documentary. But can I say, like, what you're alluding to, William, I guess is some of those wider world connections, as we say as an English teacher. But in terms of our podcast name, we're called Cinema in Context. And one of the things I'd be keen to, I guess, check in about is this film for me felt extremely relevant to our current political reality.
Oh, do you mean New Zealand or do you mean Israel-Palestine?
No. I don't mean Israel-Palestine.
Okay.
I mean Trump. I do mean New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think of the political leaders that have got into power over the last 3 years, and a lot, like in the UK and lots of places around the world.
Yeah.
Napoleon is, I feel, a relevant commentary on that type of leader.
Yeah.
In a way that Gladiator is very much of its time as well. You couldn't make, I don't think, that kind of Gladiator film today as a political commentary. I'm not saying Gladiator is a political commentary, but it comes out at a time pre 9/11.
Yes.
At a time when I think people had more belief in their leaders, and Napoleon is just a very different film.
And yet the French still not conclusively. The French don't love Napoleon for unconditionally, but they laud him, Laud, very, very highly as an historical figure. They may not love everything that he did, etc., etc., but he's still a big deal. And incidentally, you may or may not have read that Napoleon and Jesus, or rather Napoleon is second only to Jesus in terms of not import to society, but in terms of the number of films and
iconography.
Yes, but also the number of times they've been had films made about
Oh,
them, or
really?
something like apparently, which I find
wow,
extraordinary.
okay.
So, can I just say to your point, William, about should an Englishman be making a film that's French? Well, I don't think that the issues of colonization and kind of storytelling apply quite so much when it's like European. But B, the French have made heaps of stuff about Napoleon,
that's true.
so
That's true.
it takes the Riddles
I
to
guess
come along and do one for the rest of us.
What I was trying to say is
Yeah.
not colonization.
No.
It's just like it's a story that is from a very, very different perspective.
And that's okay.
That is okay, but it just comes off as weird.
Yeah, yeah,
like it's not that it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's
Yeah.
just a little different,
Yeah.
And I completely understand why the French, especially the French critics, would hate this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's strange. I have tried to empathize with the French, and it's like, what if someone made a movie about a political figure that
we really love?
We really love.
What if the
or
Danish
laud?
made a film about Jacinda,
Yeah.
for
Wasn't that
example?
going to happen? Wasn't there going to be some?
Was it
not-
cancelled?
Not the Danish, but there was some film
The
that we made about
Americans?
the mosque shooting. And
Starring
it got shut down.
Rose Byrne as
Oh,
Jacinda
that's
Ardern.
right. Oh,
yeah.
that's right. And we were annoyed
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, Like I'm thinking
We,
about.
all of us,
Yeah.
all of us, I
Well, I
spoke
did
to
feel-
everyone, and we all said that's annoying.
It
No,
is-
sorry,
it is-
yes.
Yeah, it is annoying though
Yeah.
when you don't even a country doesn't even get a chance to tell their own stories.
Sure.
But I'm just thinking, like, if you think about Napoleon and that celebration of him, I'm thinking about who do we have in our history that's like that. And do you
Winston
know-
Peter? No.
No. I was actually thinking Kate Shepherd.
He comes back from exile twice.
Yeah.
So Kate Shepherd, we famously celebrate her as the champion of
Suffrage.
I guess first wave feminism, isn't it? Yes, suffrage
Yeah,
and getting
yeah.
the woman's vote. But a piece of that narrative is that those groups were pitting the women's vote against Māori votes, and so they used a racist rhetoric
Right.
to say to get their it was
Thingy ahead.
yeah. So there's a
Interesting.
part of the narrative of the suffragette movement in New Zealand,
Yeah.
and Kate Shepherd was definitely a part of that we don't talk about.
Gosh, that'd be a fascinating movie.
It's similar to Martin Luther King Jr., right? In that he was not the greatest guy in terms of his treatment of young women, right? He was
Yeah.
And a massive philanderer and
Yeah.
adulterer, rather. And all that. Yeah.
And so and interestingly, do you know there's a really prominent black gay activist at the time, and he knew that he would not rally support, and so he was one of the key people behind Martin Luther King Jr. To support his cause. So this is just a side note.
Right.
Just some of that history that you're like, we don't know the full
Yeah,
story here
that's
and what's
right.
going on.
Or we turn a blind eye to certain bits because of whatever we might say. Let's do women first. Women vote first, and
Yeah.
then we'll deal with Māori
Yeah.
or whatever it might
So
be.
I'm not like saying, oh, down with Kate Shepherd, or
No.
What I'm saying is that some of that nuance is really healthy and important.
Yeah.
Now, is Napoleon doing that? I mean, a little bit, but I think what you said is true. Ridley Scott's intention of telling a love story or a character investigation of Napoleon and Josephine is very much what this movie is.
Yeah.
But there is that it is so relevant to the Trumpian era of politics. He's this kind of horrible man.
Yeah.
But he's very good at kind of rallying people.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is that, with all that being said, you very rarely see what the people think. Right? There's that scene with.
Do you not hear the people sing? Singing the songs of possibly angry men.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean-
it's been a while since the revolution.
Look, you don't forget that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
At least Napoleon didn't sing like this.
That's true.
A Hugh Jackman impression.
And wasn't Russell in...
Yes, he
Yes,
was.
he
Name is
was.
it?
Yeah.
Russell Crowe sung like this.
That's right.
Pretty good stars impersonation. But yeah, like you see the scene with the regiment coming to arrest him, and they turn to his side, and I think that's the only time you see how the general populace views this character. And I think that's completely intentional.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about his interior motivations, and even like the bloodless coup and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, a lot of it is just, it's window dressing, because that's not what Ridley Scott or the movie is interested about.
Yeah.
It's about Napoleon, as it says in the title. And I find that to be fascinating. Like, yeah, he is a autocrat. He is a, some would argue, dictator.
Yeah.
But, like, the movie's not about that.
Yeah. You know, you've reminded me of something, another sort of similarity between the two films. So Napoleon was a Corsican, so somewhat outside of like main France, and yet absolutely unconditionally pro-France, in love with France. This is my country, this is what we're doing, da-di-da. And interestingly, that only interesting to me maybe, but I've started, so I'll finish, that Maximus is a Spaniard, and yet absolutely there for Rome, and absolutely loyal to Italy. I mean, I know it wasn't Italy at the time, but you know what I mean anyway.
Yeah.
Can I just say though, I wrote in my lists, similar, tense, cold blue palette, except in the warm sunny climes where it goes yellow, which is the same in both films. Yeah, so
they film in Malta in both films.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's a Ridley style thing. Dissimilar. Heft of cast. Gladiator has Richard Harris, Oliver Reed, Derek Jacobi, and others.
Derek Jacobi is so good.
Jimon Honsu, his like star-making role.
Right. But so at the time he wasn't anybody, but that's right. And then, but the other one, what's it called? Napoleon has Vanessa Kirby, my friend Taha Rahim, who I have interviewed. So I consider that Taha and I. He is a wonderful actor. He is French. He is actually from North Africa. His accent wasn't too French either. So when I say too, I don't mean judgmentally. I mean it was quite neutral. But anyway, but that's all.
It has Ben Miles. When Ben Miles appeared on screen, I pointed to him.
I do like him.
It's like, Jeremy, he's the guy from Andor.
Okay, fine. So I guess, and Ben, you know, I've seen him in the theatre.
Yeah,
as well.
I remember.
He's been on British television for a very long time. So I suppose, but I mean, I wouldn't consider him a Harris, a Reed, or a Jacobi. So there was something about Gladiator. And Connie Nielsen she's Danish, did you know? She wasn't really anybody back in the Gladiator days. She was one of Ridley's pretty girls, bring them in and off we go. But I thought, you know, he could have made Napoleon a bit heftier, but...
I do appreciate that with Ridley Scott, and he talks a lot about this, that he spends a lot of effort and energy on casting. His thing is, if you get the cast right, you've done 80% of the job. So I do appreciate that he does, even though he might use Ridley Scott, Russell Crowe a couple of times, or, you know, he's made a few films with some of the same actors. He casts to role, and everybody feels very much who they are.
Yeah.
All right, should we get to our Patreon questions?
Yes.
So let's start with a third film that you would collectively group with these movies. Go, Sarah.
For once, I have one.
Nice.
Hey.
Like ahead of like the moment that you ask. Elizabeth, the Shikha Kapoor, wonderful, I think it might have been 2000, with Kate Blanchett, another Australian, playing... an historical figure, Elizabeth I. I absolutely adore the film Elizabeth. Now, why do I think they go well together? Well, if you look at them as the three all in one pot, you've got an historical figure played by somebody who is not the nationality of the person that they're playing, but that's a little bit surface. Beautiful film, incredible, like the emotion, the story, the through line, the peril and everything in Elizabeth. Have you both seen it?
I've seen it.
A while
I
ago.
could see it so many times, over and over and over. Incredible cast.
I never saw the sequel, but I've heard that was quite
It's
good
not.
as well.
It's okay, but it doesn't give you what you want from it.
She's the big, I have a hurricane in me, sir. She's got a big speech, which is great.
And with Clive Owen. But the first one is really extraordinary. Even Josephine, fresh from Shakespeare in Love, is soon to be in or whatever. Extraordinary. But the first one, Christopher Eccleston, Geoffrey Rush, incredible supporting cast. Kate Blanchett is absolutely mind-blowing. But I genuinely mean it. The battle scenes are incredible and scintillating. The evil machinations going on behind the scenes. It's very, very historically driven, and absolutely just one of the greatest films ever that I would put above Gladiator. I love Gladiator, and I could watch it over and over. But Elizabeth, really, it makes me now think as I say this, I want to watch it again very soon. It's just an extraordinary film, highly recommended. And again, I don't think that dates because it is so steeped in historical accuracy that it's not like you're watching something and going, well, you wouldn't say that nowadays. Because, no, you probably wouldn't say that nowadays because this was, 1589 or whatever. So, yeah, amazing.
I need to rewatch that movie. I remember really enjoying it, and I like Kate Blanchett in anything.
So good. Christopher Eccleston. Oh,
That's right. Yeah.
amazing. and that's all about not crossing the wrong person and deceit and Kelly MacDonald. Amazing.
It's probably there's a lot of things that Game of Thrones draws from. I guess George R.R. Martin was trying to write during that period the Game of Thrones TV show, and then, you know this, don't you? He wrote Game of Thrones as a TV show. Nobody would make it.
And then he was catching up. Was he not still writing the books as he...
What I mean is he was writing Game of Thrones as a TV show. Nobody would pick it up. It was too expensive. And so he thought, stuff you all, I'm going to go write them as books. And then, ironically, they became the biggest TV show of all time.
But didn't it get to an inflection point where the TV shows had been made and he had to keep writing?
He's still not released his last 2 books.
Keep writing in inverted commas.
Oh, I see. Is he on sabbatical?
He's been on sabbatical since 2011.
He's not dead, is he?
No. He gets interested in other stuff. He was writing video games.
Oh, right.
He writes his blog about NFL. He does anything other than finish Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
I just think it's a very complicated story, and he's really written himself into a spaghetti corner.
Well, what would be your third film?
The Last Duel.
Hey.
Oh, wonderful. That was a great Ridley.
It was fantastic, and nobody saw it.
I saw it.
Did you know Jodie Comer was supposed to be Josephine?
Oh, yes, I did. And there was a scheduling conflict.
Yeah, because of COVID shutdowns and stuff. They had to switch to Vanessa Kirby.
I'm actually really glad. Yeah.
I mean, I love Jodie Comer. She's perfect for that film. I mean, that is a movie that...
Last Duel?
The Last Duel.
Yeah.
You know, that's a film...
I want to watch that again.
I think I watched it last year during Christmas, and it was just... Me and my nephew watched it, actually. I mean, the dueling is just gut-wrenching. It's so visceral and wonderful. And, it's so great to see Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in a film together again. I always love a film that, there's a Rashomon, which tells, what's Hero? You see a story from
Vantage Point, that old classic with Dennis Quaid. I've seen that a lot of times because I love a multi-perspective story.
Multi-perspective story. Jackie Brown is another one. You can see the same thing from different people's perspectives.
Usual Suspects.
Yeah, true. It's a great storytelling technique, and I think that's a film that it's just beautifully made. I watched an interview with Ridley Scott where he talks about the final moment of that film and what it means for the main character that is kind of entering that final scene and the emotional significance of that. And I thought, I want to watch the movie that gets to that point. And so there was this confidence about what he was doing in that movie that is quite wonderful.
I'm going to put that on my rewatch list. Nice, thank you.
I mean, fair warning, it's about a sexual assault. I mean, that's one of the key central plot elements. And so it's interesting that it's a movie with a lot of men.
Terribly well done. I don't mean the sexual assault scene. Well, I mean, the whole thing is terribly well done, though, because you watch the first third thinking, oh, right, I see what's going on here. And then you watch the second third and go, oh, hang on a second, all right. Yeah. And that's nicely done when you're I mean, I know that's the point of it. It subverts your interpretations and all.
Do you know what? I actually need to go back and rewatch it because I think we fast-forwarded chunks of that movie. Because I was with my nephew and I was like, we're not going to watch this scene together.
You need to watch it properly.
I need to go back and...
There's real nuance about it. That's the thing. What about you, William?
My pick is something a little bit different. I was thinking about the overall settings and the vibes of both films, very historical epics. A lot of scenes in the Senate or in the French government.
You're not going to say Star Wars.
That
has a Senate.
The Senate.
No, wait.
My lord.
No, wait.
My film is The Lost City of Zed.
Oh, wow. Is that the one with
Charlie Hunnam.
Sandra Bullock?
No, that's The Lost City.
The Lost City, which is really fun with Brad Pitt
I like that movie.
and Channing Tatum. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. No, wait. Of Z.
Of Zed.
Oh, of
Yes.
Z. Okay.
Have you guys seen this movie?
No.
I don't even know.
Oh, okay.
I've heard of it a lot, but I don't know in what context.
Right. It's a film about a real life explorer who gets funding from the Explorers Guild to go find the lost city of Zed. It is a crazy kind of Heart of Darkness style thing. Charlie Hunnam's the main guy. His son is played by a very young Tom Holland. And it's all about like Victorian era politics. The Explorers Guild is crazy. It's one of the first times in cinema I can remember thinking, oh, so this is what being, a scientist and an explorer meant in Victoria times, which is just a bunch of mustachioed, bearded men screaming at each other. Which, my gosh, in both Gladiator and for Napoleon, there's scenes that do reflect that.
Robert Pattinson as well.
Yes, Pattinson's
And it's a James Gray film.
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah.
I heard of it at a time, 2016.
I saw this at the Film Fest.
Right.
It's a really, really solid movie. But I think the vibes of it really hit home how, I guess, of a piece it is with the Senate scenes in Gladiator, as well as the parliamental scene.
Right.
In Napoleon.
Yeah, right.
Right, it's kind of that historical... How should I put this? Like, politics used to be really interesting, you guys. And it used to be more than just people sitting on a bench and arguing about stuff.
About who was going to be deputy prime minister.
Yeah, there were fisticuffs.
Oh, wait, it's still like that. Okay.
Yeah. If you're talking about Taiwanese government,
Sure.
then yes, fisticuffs break out every second week.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's about passion and it's about people who truly believe in what they are saying and up against, military might and lack of funding and all of that stuff. And it's an engine that drives the whole exploration thing. The exploration is brilliant and they kind of, as you would expect going into the Amazon, there's a lot of horrible things that happen to our dear heroes. But like, that's kind of just half of the story. The other half is the expedition and setting up of the expedition, which really, really rings true. And it draws from the same well that I think both these movies that we're talking about right now draw from.
Very interesting.
Nice.
Intersecting set.
Right.
Yeah.
What's a moment that people would want to change from one of the films?
I know in the main episode I talked about historical inaccuracy is not important. But Napoleon didn't charge into Waterloo. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You have that scene immediately preceded by the Duke of Wellington going, commanding officers don't take pot shots at each other. Like, what would the world come to? And then he gets his little spyglass out, and there's Napoleon, our hero, leading a cavalry charge. And it's like, this is Hollywood nonsense. Like, it's so against what the film had just been talking about. Plus, the story goes that he was suffering from really bad hemorrhoids. He literally could not ride a horse. And then you see him, charging in on a horse. Yeah.
My change would be to Napoleon. I don't know what the change would be, but I do appreciate your point, Sarah, from earlier, which is there is this element of thrust or through line or stakes that is not quite there.
Yeah.
And I don't really have much desire to watch the 4-hour
cut. And that's the thing. I came out, and I'm jumping in here because I agree with you. I don't know exactly what I would change, but something didn't quite work. And I came out thinking, well, I wouldn't bother to watch that again. And compared with Gladiator and most of the other films, which I would see again. So yeah, there's something... Is it pacing? Is it not pacing?
I think it's pacing.
Right.
Yeah. It just feels so much more languid than Gladiator, right?
I also, this is a bit silly, and I don't really mean this, but, if I think about the way Tarantino makes films, or even Barbie that came out early this year, I almost wanted the movie to end with some sly comment, and then cut to ABBA's Waterloo and for the credits.
Yeah.
That's my moment.
You would make French people's heads explode.
Yeah. Just to put a twist on on this. I don't know what I'd change. Something in Napoleon. I wouldn't change anything in Gladiator. And I would just like to say that I really admire the fact that he dies at the end, because he's got nothing left to live for. The whole thing is about somebody whose life is literally on the line in order for other reasons. And I really like that they sacrifice him, even as though it was desperately, desperately sad at the time. And actually, his reconnaissance, not that, his reconnection with his family in Elysium was desperately moving. The music with Lisa Gerrard is extraordinary.
Yeah. Is she the singer?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that, even though Sarah sometimes says, I wish they'd all live at the end or whatever, in this instance, I'm like, this is the right thing to do.
And his sacrifice has both personal consequence and national consequence,
That's
because
right.
he saves Rome, but he also saves Connie Nielsen and her son.
Yes.
And that lovely
Yes.
Shakespearean moment where he says, now you can be free, or whatever he
But
says
you
to
might
her.
think that he can go off and remarry her and have his son, have the Lucius as his son and all that stuff, and they don't do that, which is great.
I think their little kiss was a little bit unnecessary, but I was also like,
I didn't mind that.
I'll give
I
it
didn't
to
mind
you.
that. But like I say, I'm glad they didn't like have a big night of passion or any of that bollocks.
Yeah. I thought Lucius was... did he feel anachronistic to you guys?
Yeah, he's a
He
little
was
bit.
just this little 90s kid with a 90s Moffat
Yeah, and
haircut.
that's a bit tricky. And that's, and that, or you can't legislate for that, really. Spencer Treat Clark, his name is.
Okay.
I know he's grown
well
up
done.
to do other things, but I don't.
okay.
Yeah,
Stay
he's a
in
cute
acting.
kid, and
Yeah.
he's a little bit cute and American. He's
Yeah.
like he should have been in Jumanji, but what are you going to do?
One thing about Gladiator that I wish was done maybe a little bit better was because Maximus has his two bros, right? So Jimon Honsu's, what was his name? Juba. And the huge German guy,
Yeah.
Hagen, played by
Did you fight
Rolf
battles
Müller.
in Germania?
Yeah.
I did it all over. I was sitting on the couch going, yeah, you did. And they went, don't admit that. Yeah.
Like, yeah, his bros, they're bros.
That was
I
cute.
love them,
Yeah.
and they had a really cool friendship going on, and they supported each other. And he just dies by being shot full of arrows. It's
Yeah,
like,
I
he needed a
noticed.
cooler death or to survive.
Yeah.
It felt like that sequence was, they were sort of making it up on the fly.
Way later,
Well, you-
after Oliver Reed died.
And you-
Wait,
that they
with the
were-
tigers and that.
No, the death sequence of, the nighttime storming of the compound.
Oh, you're right. That's when he dies. Yeah.
I just think that, and also they were all exhausted when they were so exhausted by the end of that film.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, can I go on with my favourite moment
Please.
of both movies?
Yes.
And we've already briefly talked about it, but William and I both, I think, had our mouths hanging open in the cinema, was that ice sequence. And the bloodied bodies and just that beautiful
That was my favourite bit too.
cinematography.
There you go. You can have it.
It
Yeah.
was amazing.
It was amazing.
That is one of the best things
And
I've
I'd-
seen in like 20 years.
And even though I'd
on screen.
seen it in the trailer, I was like, it wasn't
getting
ruined
goosebumps
for me.
right now.
It wasn't ruined for me knowing that it was coming. I was
Yeah.
like, show me this. How's this going to work?
Actually, I take it back, not 20 years. The last time my mouth was in awe like that was the
Mad Max?
sandstorm sequence in Mad Max.
Right.
That was just like, and the music and everything. But this was just wonderful.
You guys haven't seen Saltburn yet, have you?
Not yet.
No, my mouth was like that in Saltburn for
okay.
other reasons.
Okay.
Anyway, back to you. Yeah.
And how they set up that scene where you see the geography, you
Yes.
see, who's it? The Austrians, right? Or was it the Russians? No, it's the Austrians.
Yeah.
The Austrians
Yeah.
coming in. You see the positioning of the French army. You see that Napoleon and his men are not with the French army. You're like, what's going on here?
That's right.
And then he enacts his battle plan. The cavalry charge. He unleashes the cannons, and it's just like clockwork. Boom, boom,
Brilliant.
boom. So satisfying.
Yeah, very Game of Thrones as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah. When the Austrian guy, clears the snow and sees they're on ice, the audience are like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god!"
Yeah.
You know something's coming.
Yeah,
in.
brilliant.
Yeah. So that was your moment as well?
That was my favourite moment of Napoleon. My favourite Gladiator moment is the scene that we've spoken about briefly before, which was the very first time that the centurions or the gladiators are in the Colosseum. It's the smaller Colosseum. It's the very first time, and they're standing in the waiting room, in the green room, and he goes, "Have any of you been in the army?" And they go, "Yes." And he goes, "Let's stick together." And they're like, "Cool." Actually, my heart sings because they're working together, and I love watching that, and the on the fly kind of and we're behind each other and so on, and then just the thrills of that where the chariots come out and they start to win and they bust the horses and everybody rolls and they kill the thing and the woman gets sliced in half. That is a great scene, not just for the gratuitousness of it all, but it's thrilling, and also it's a sign of if we work as a team,
it's character focused.
It's really lovely. Yeah.
I love that moment in the very, very first, the crappy arena fight.
Yes.
Where he's the gladiator for the first time, and you see all those like super nervous people. There's a guy soiling himself.
Yes.
And then all you see is the swinging of the flail, causing the light. The sound slows down and goes vroom.
Yes.
Vroom. Boom, the doors burst open and it is on. Like,
yes,
my gosh,
I agree.
What lovely filmmaking. And then you're just thrown in with the gladiators into this arena of chaos.
And it's terrifying as well, because in that moment I thought, oh my gosh, if I was in that front row, I would be wetting myself, because the minute you're out there, you are dead.
Yeah.
And that's the same with Napoleon and all of the war scenes. Everybody at the front is screwed.
Yeah.
So if you're not in the second row, or preferably the 13th, it's a terrible place. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. If you enjoy our podcast, consider signing up to our Patreon. Cinema in Context patrons receive access to exclusive minisodes, opportunities for one-on-one discussions about films you love, and our extended episode catalogue. Find out more at patreon.com/cinema in context. You can listen to Cinema in Context on SoundCloud, Spotify, Radio Public, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, which are great places to let us know what you think of this episode and give us suggestions for future films to discuss and compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time, which is our end-of-year wrap-up.
Hey.
And until then,
No hora mai!